The confusion began almost immediately after Caitriona Balfe finished speaking. Her words were calm, measured, and unusually direct, the kind that signal intention rather than impulse. Within hours, before audiences could fully process what she had said, Heughan made a move so visible and consequential that it hijacked the conversation entirely. The timing felt too precise to dismiss as coincidence. Caitriona's statement itself was not explosive on the surface. She avoided dramatic language, chose her phrasing carefully, and offered no sensational detail that could be easily misquoted. Yet for those who follow her patterns, the shift was unmistakable. She rarely speaks unless she believes silence has become more damaging than clarity. That context made Heughan's next step feel jarring. Instead of a comment, clarification, or supportive silence, he acted. The move was public, decisive, and impossible to ignore, cutting across the narrative that had just begun to settle. Fans watching the sequence unfold struggled to understand whether this was response, deflection, or something else entirely. What intensified the confusion was Sam's history. He has long favored restraint, especially when personal matters risk overshadowing professional work. Sudden, high-profile decisions are not his usual language, particularly when emotions are involved. That departure from habit suggested either urgency or long-term planning finally surfacing. Observers began reconstructing the timeline almost immediately. Caitríona speaks, headlines form, then Sam moves, all within a window so narrow it feels engineered. In entertainment, timing is rarely accidental, and when it aligns this tightly, it often points to coordination or pressure. The lack of explanation only sharpened that suspicion. The nature of Sam's move added another layer. It wasn't subtle or symbolic, it carried weight and consequence, the kind of decision that reshapes future expectations. Industry insiders noted that choices like this are usually discussed months in advance, not executed overnight. That raised a critical question about whether the move was already planned, simply revealed at a volatile moment. Fans split quickly into camps. Some believed Sam was answering Caitríona without words, offering action where others expected commentary. Others felt the move contradicted her message entirely, creating a narrative clash that left both positions harder to interpret. The absence of alignment made certainty impossible. Media analysis followed a similar pattern. Commentators searched for meaning in the sequence rather than the substance, focusing on order rather than content. The story became less about what was said and more about when something happened. In that space, speculation thrives. Behind the scenes, sources described an atmosphere of caution. Advisors on both sides reportedly urged restraint, aware that any additional signal could amplify misunderstanding. Once timing becomes the story, every movement risks being read as confirmation or denial. Silence, however, can be just as loud. What makes this moment especially volatile is the shared history between Sam and Caitríona. Audiences project meaning onto even the smallest interactions, and this sequence provided far more than a glance or pause. It offered a chain of events that feels intentional, whether it was or not. That perception alone is powerful. As hours turned into days, the confusion did not fade. Instead, it solidified into a question with no clear answer. Was Sam reacting emotionally, asserting independence, or following a strategy set long before Caitríona spoke? Each possibility carries different implications, and none can be confirmed yet. What is clear is that the order of events changed the narrative. Caitríona's words invited reflection, but Sam's action demanded interpretation. Together, they created a disconnect that audiences are still trying to reconcile. Until either speaks again, the space between word and action will remain filled with uncertainty. The debate surrounding Heughan's move grew more intense as observers began focusing on what he did not say. While Heughan allowed his action to stand alone, the absence of explanation created a vacuum that others rushed to fill. In Hollywood, silence after a decisive step is rarely neutral. It invites interpretation, whether intended or not. Timing remained the most unsettling element. The proximity between Caitriona Balfe's statement and Sam's move felt uncomfortably tight, forcing audiences to read them as connected. Industry veterans often point out that when two high-profile figures act within the same news cycle, the narrative fuses them together automatically. Even if coordination never existed, perception quickly replaces fact. Some insiders argue that Sam's decision had been in motion long before Caitríona spoke. Large professional moves rarely materialize overnight, especially for someone known to plan carefully. Contracts, negotiations, and commitments usually require months of preparation behind the scenes. From that perspective, the timing may be coincidence rather than response. Others strongly disagree, noting that plans can be accelerated or delayed strategically. In moments of heightened attention, revealing a prepared move can serve as a powerful counter-narrative. It shifts focus without requiring a single word. For someone who prefers action over explanation, this tactic would be consistent. Fans, meanwhile, struggled to reconcile the emotional logic. Caitríona's words felt reflective and controlled, inviting calm interpretation. Sam's move, by contrast, felt disruptive, almost abrupt, as if cutting across the tone she had set. The contrast made it difficult to read them as aligned, even if they were not intended to be compared. This disconnect fed a growing sense of imbalance. Audiences accustomed to reading subtle cues suddenly faced two signals pointing in different directions. When narratives diverge this sharply, confusion becomes inevitable. People begin searching for hidden meaning where clarity is absent. Media coverage amplified that confusion rather than resolving it. Headlines focused on reaction and speculation, often framing Sam's move as a response regardless of evidence. Once that framing took hold, alternative explanations struggled to gain traction. Momentum, not accuracy, began driving the story. Behind closed doors, advisors reportedly emphasized restraint. Any clarification risked locking the narrative into a version that might not reflect reality. At the same time, allowing speculation to grow unchecked threatened to harden assumptions. This tension is one of the most difficult dynamics public figures face. For Sam Heughan, the cost of explanation may simply outweigh the cost of confusion. Speaking would invite follow-up questions, interpretations, and expectations he may not wish to satisfy. Remaining silent preserves autonomy, even if it frustrates observers. Control, in this case, may lie in refusal rather than engagement. Caitriona Balfe's position became equally complicated by the unfolding reaction. Her statement, intended or not, was now inseparable from Sam's move in public perception. Even without additional comment, she became part of a narrative she did not advance. This illustrates how timing alone can reshape meaning. As days passed, speculation evolved into analysis. Commentators began treating the sequence as a case study in nonverbal communication within celebrity culture. Actions were weighed against words, silence against timing. The lack of resolution only deepened interest. What remains striking is how quickly certainty dissolved. Initial reactions assumed intent, strategy, or emotional response, but none could be confirmed. The story became less about facts and more about interpretation. In that environment, confusion is not a failure of communication, but its consequence. The episode highlights a broader truth about public narratives. Once multiple signals emerge without alignment, the audience takes over construction of meaning. Every pause, delay, or decision becomes symbolic. Reality becomes secondary to perception. Whether Sam's move was planned, reactive, or coincidental may never be clarified. What matters is how it was received and contextualized. The sequence altered how both figures are viewed, at least temporarily. That impact lingers regardless of intent. In the end, the confusion itself became the message. It revealed how fragile narrative control can be when timing collides with expectation. Until either Sam Heughan or Caitriona Balfe chooses to speak again, interpretation will continue to fill the silence. And in that space, uncertainty remains the most powerful force of all.